Welcome everyone to the latest in the Incubator ThinkTenq monthly webinar series. This will be our last webinar for the year of 2020, and we're looking forward to bigger and better things in 2021. Today we're talking with Incubator founder and CEO Sujal Raju. Today Sujal will be presenting the second part of a recent discussion that took place at the HCIC 2020 conference, where Sujal spoke on today's topic of boosting your SEO by using Schema Markup. Welcome, Sujal, and thanks for taking this time to share this great information with everyone today.
Thank you, Dave. Welcome, everyone, and thanks for the opportunity, Dave. 2020 has been a weird year, but I'm glad that everyone has gone through it, and we're looking forward to 2021.
Everyone agrees, and I agree. I think 2021 will be better for everyone. Before we get into things today, we'd like to give you a quick overview of Incubator. Incubator is a Michigan-based firm founded in 2011 that specializes in beautiful enterprise-level websites. Incubator is a one-stop shop for creative design, secure cloud hosting, and custom systems integrations. And Incubator helps to enable complete, commercially based, interactive websites with features such as e-commerce, media streaming, communication portals, and much, much more. As we discuss more about Incubator clients, quick recap as well. Sujal, the Incubator founder, with us today as usual, and his initial staff have a background in healthcare. So naturally, Incubator has a concentration of healthcare clients in its portfolio. In the last 7 years, though, Incubator's expanded its portfolio to provide support and services to other industries, including robotics and manufacturing, the judicial and court world, education, nonprofits, museums, and many more. All right, Sujal, rather. If you'd like to, why don't you take it from here and give us a little more information on Schema and what more you can tell us about this great topic.
Sounds good, Dave. And I think what we'll cover, like Dave has mentioned, this is part of our webinar series on Schema. And I recently spoke at the Greystone conference in November of 2020. And it's called the Healthcare Internet Conference at HCIC. And so this is an extension. I know many of you were not able to join us. So we are hoping that this presentation would be helpful for you. And also we're going to have one more webinar on Schema, which will actually tell you an in-depth implementation using Google Tag Manager. So look out for that coming soon. And so when we talk about Schema, I think it's important to understand why schemas actually came into, I would say, implementation. And to look into that, we should first look at, the Google search engine, which by far is the dominant search engine that's available on the internet. Whenever someone wants to look up any information, everyone starts from google.com. So what happened, and let's look at how Google, came into dominance in the search engine market, and it was with the algorithm called PageRank. There were several search engines prior to Google, but where Google became more effective is that the results that it was producing was much more relevant to the users. So, slowly the number of users using it started increasing. And the concept behind the PageRank was very simple. All it said was that, hey, if there is many sites that are linking to your site for a particular topic or a keyword, that means that your site is probably a good producer of content or is relevant in answering questions for that particular content. And it worked great because that's what it was all about. If more people, it's kind of like a referral system. If more people are referring you for that particular content or a keyword, then that means that you would have the most relevant content for it. The problem with that was every marketer started realizing that that's how it works and started creating a lot of techniques on how they could either stuff their websites or possibly link their websites with, a lot of different, I would say, linking companies where they would, take some money or fee and link your website on their blogs and things like that. And what happened is, like, because of that, that created a lot of noise. So all of a sudden there is multiple sites that are coming back as relevant sites. And that creates a problem for Google, because Google is in the business to, sell more ads and become more dominant in their search engine business. So they're always on the, I would say, on the task to make sure that the results that it's producing is more and more relevant. And so you can see that in the last 2 decades, that's why it has created multiple updates to its algorithms. And quite a bit of it is actually relevant and open information, but is obviously there is a lot of other techniques that it's actually using to continuously improve that cycle and make their search engine relevant. A few of them I've listed here. The Panda update. What that did is basically the update started penalizing or removing duplicate content. And this is where website owners would actually create a lot of gateway pages on their sites, if you remember, and they would stuff those pages with keywords. So that way, the idea was that if you have more content on a particular topic, on a keyword on your site, that means that Google would think that you have, your website is probably the leading website that should answer that question or be on the top of the search engine results. So the Panda update actually started, they had an algorithm that would actually detect that and started removing those duplicate contents and helping that. The next major update was the Google Hummingbird update, the Penguin update. And the Penguin update, what it did was it actually started profiling any links. So for example, any blog sites, if they were taking, adding links to sites, just because to increase the page ranking, it would realize that, and that algorithm would stop the link farms and PBNs where people were paying them to link their website. Also, you would have seen, like, there's also a technique where search engine optimization companies actually go into blogs of other people's sites and start putting in links in comments. And you would have seen that happening in YouTube and other places too, where if your site, such as Facebook or other things, are higher ranked sites, all of a sudden you could just go into their comments and put in links to which are totally irrelevant to the topic, but still, because those links start appearing on those sites, it helped the sites to get better rankings because of better referrals from these high ranked sites. But Penguin update actually put a hold on that. Basically, it started policing that as well to realize that, hey, these are not even relevant and things like that. The Hummingbird update was actually an update that helped for voice searches. It actually started recognizing content in terms of context to be able to answer questions and facts. And that's again, trying to make sure that when a user performs a search, that they're getting the right results. Rank Brain update is where Google started using AI, artificial intelligence, or pattern matching to be able to parse the websites and be able to, learn or increase the relevancy of search engine results that show up when someone performs a search. And BERT update, which is a more recent update, which is in 2019, is more of a natural language processing update, where it started looking at content that is being searched for in more of a natural language and be able to answer those. So if there were sites that were providing content which was relevant to the context, not just the keywords, then that update started helping get better results. So you can see, like, right about 2018, 2019, when the BERT update came in, you would see that your searches are getting more and more efficient, in the sense, like, when you type in a question or something like that, the answer that comes up is usually what you were looking for. You don't have to exactly click a link, go to that website and read it. It actually already knows and provides you the answer for your question. And how all of this is working is one of the most important tools is Schema. Schema actually helps search engines understand the context of the content on your website, and that actually helps them better rank your website, as well as for example, if you have content on a blog site and it's talking about let's say maybe a food recipe that helps healing a certain type of disease, things like that. Now all of a sudden you have a blog article on a food recipe on your healthcare website, and how does Google understand, like, hey, that's what you're doing over there versus just another food website? Schema actually helps that, hey, you're producing this food recipe for curing a disease or things like that, or for healthy living. So that's where Schema comes in. So before we talk about what exactly Schema is, let's look at, if you don't have Schema on your website, what happens. So if you don't have a Schema applied on your website, you basically you're not providing the context of the search engine. So when the search engine bot comes to your site and they're parsing the content, they're actually seeing the lines of code behind your website. They don't see all of the UI elements, the user elements that you might have, the graphics, the pictures, and things like that. It has to go through the text or the HTML code behind your website and be able to understand the content that you're providing. So if you don't have Schema, it's only looking at text as a bunch of letters and words, and it's trying to make sense and trying to index your website so that it can better mark your website for certain keywords. However, so in this case, I have an example here where, let's say if you were reading a blog article and it has Dr. John Smith, and there's several tags around it and things like that. But when it looks at it, it has no idea that who Dr. John Smith is, except for like it sounds like a name, and it stores it, but it doesn't know that, hey, this Dr. John Smith is actually an author of this blog article and things like that. So kind of building what's called as a knowledge graph around a particular article. So that's one thing that you miss when you don't have a Schema. The other thing is, when you don't have Schema on your website, when search engines list your website or web page on their search engine results page, it appears as what's called as a weak listing, meaning traditionally you would have the title of the page, then you have the brief content on that page, and wherever the keywords matched on what you were searching for, it would highlight it, right? But the thing is, it's lacking the eye-catching details such as the preparation time, calorie count, picture, and rating. If you had those, in a few slides, we'll see actually how that appears. And you'll see that the more information that you can provide so that Google can put that on the site actually helps catch the attention of the user, and they're more inclined to click your link versus someone else who doesn't have Schema and their listing appears like the traditional listing, on the search engine.
So you're giving you're putting yourself more in control of all this content then, correct? I mean, you're giving more information out there to Google, so you're making Google's job easier here.
It is, and also, in a way, we are also helping ourselves, right, Dave? Because if you provide the Schema and more of your content, whether it be links, whether it be the image, or more information around the topic, in this case, the apple pie recipe, the more information that's out there that Google puts out, the more, I would say, a percentage of the users that can click on your link, right? Because comparing a rich snippet link, and we'll see that versus something like on traditional link result, people are more inclined to click on a website or a URL that they think that they might find the information on. So something like ratings and reviews, I'm sure like people who are shopping on Amazon can relate to it, where you're not gonna buy a product which has less ratings or not many reviews, or maybe the pictures were not taken well. Things like that. So it's something like that. So on this slide, the other thing that you would miss without Schema is what is called as a featured snippet. You would have seen this on Google search results. We have a screenshot of it over here, where you can see that we are searching for a hospital services, and rather than showing you a page link where you can click on that and then see the services that are offered on that hospital, you're actually seeing the services right there. This is all possible because the Schema on that particular website's page actually said that, hey, these are the services we offer. So now Google is able to answer that question right away. And what's great for this hospital is that they have gained so much real estate. It's not just the listing, but now they actually have a picture of their hospital. They have all the services, and if the user was also searching for, let's say, their phone number, the likelihood of showing their phone number or also even a link to the map, driving directions, is all great things of what's possible with schema. So now let's talk about what exactly is schema. Like now we know that, hey, with schema, we can get better results and featured snippets and things like that. Schema is really a structured data language. It's an XML file and that sits or in a JSON format that sits behind your HTML code. It's something that is behind the scenes in the code. So the good thing is that you can apply it to an existing site. You don't have to worry about recreating your websites or things like that. Your developer or yourself, and we'll talk about some of those techniques in a few slides. But also we're going to do a separate webinar on exactly how to do that, so that a user who is not efficient with coding can actually do this using what's called as a Google Tag Manager as well. So basically, it's a code behind the scenes. That code is meant to be used by these search engines, and when the search engines come to your site, can read that and can then relate. For example, on a blog site, where exactly have you mentioned the author's name? Where exactly have you mentioned for example, the calorie count? Talking about that apple pie recipe search that we were talking about. So it's meant for its code. It's a piece of code. It's meant for the search engine bots, and the code which actually provides the context is think of it like, if you're reading a book and your index page tells you like exactly on which page, or even a manual, if it tells you exactly on which page you can find the right information. Schema is similar to that. And the schemas, if you will, for example, you have a different schema for a hospital site, you have a different schema for, let's say, a robotics site, a different schema for, let's say, an automobile company, things like that. Because, obviously, depending on different markets, the top of, I guess, the topics and as well as parameters or feature set of what you're talking about changes. These are all created or provided or centralized by a general body that was created on schema.org. So if you go to schema.org, you will find all the different types of schemas that all of the browsers and I would say search engines have come together and said like, hey, this is a standard way of how we're going to recognize the schema. So it's available over there. This was started actually by Google, Microsoft, Yahoo, and Yandex, and these group of people came together, just like how HTML was standardized as the way of showing you web pages by browsers. Schema.org produces provides the guideline of how schemas are that can be used on websites for search engines. Next,
how is that?
Yeah.
How is that standardization? How does that benefit everyone involved here?
So, think of it, Dave, like, how every website is different. It looks different. You may have your own navigation and things like that, which is most relevant to your business. The problem is if everyone used a different definition of schema, then all of a sudden it has no use for the search engines to understand what we are doing. So schema.org actually is a way of saying that, hey, this is how we'll do business. This is how search engines can read information on your site. So that's why schema.org is relevant, and that. So basically, the idea is to centralize a definition of how schemas will be added to the website.
Gotcha.
And so we briefly talked about without schema what happens. So let's say once you apply the schema, what happens, and what you will see happening to your site. One thing is obviously it's going to boost the SEO on your site, because every page that you have on your site or any most of the pages or the pages that you've applied schema on your site, all of a sudden is going to tell Google or other search engines when they spider your site much more relevant information. Google is now better able to understand the context of what you're saying. So like I said earlier, maybe your website only talks about food recipes versus compared to a hospital site where they may have just one page talking about a food recipe for healthy living, right? One is talking about how to eat food as to create a better health, and the other food is more for enjoying and indulging in exotic foods and recipes. So the thing is with schema, it'll understand And when a person's, so let's say if a user that's making a search on Google has just had a cancer treatment and they're just getting out of it, and they are looking for a food recipe on how to better their health, versus someone who is just looking to make, let's say, a Thanksgiving dinner. There's two different audiences here, but they might be searching for the same, for example, apple pie recipe. So how does Google understand and show you the right apple pie recipe, whether it should be for healthy living versus just for making it for a family dinner? That's where schema comes in. So if you apply the right schema, it will know that, hey, you're providing this recipe for living healthy, and how you can overcome a disease, things like that. So that's why schema will help you. So once you do that, obviously it will increase the organic traffic, because now anyone who is performing a search on the recipe, your search results will show up higher because it's more relevant to the context. And also when people click on it and come to your site, the quality of those visits are also higher. Why? Because the people who are clicking or seeing the results of your page on the search engine are actually the people who are actually finding or searching for the information that you're providing. So it's not like someone who is searching for apple pie will land up on your site. It's actually the person who is searching for a recipe of apple pie for cancer treatment that's clicking your link. So that increases the number of obviously the quality of visits goes up higher. The other thing is rich snippets. We talked about that example where we had the services of a hospital that were showing up. So once you've provided the schema, Google and other search engines will now show more relevant information using the knowledge graph. So if you're searching for a hospital, it'll start showing more information about your business around it, and that's why it helps. And also with schema, for example, if you've applied them on events or any type of time-sensitive content, for example, any emergency or weather-related information that's relevant, let's say if there is a hurricane that's coming up, and then you wanted to provide information around that, Google will use schema and understand what type of information you're providing, and also that it's relevant only for that day. So for an upcoming event, it will know that, hey, once the event is over, it's going to take it out of their search engine. So it helps for the time-sensitive events as well. Here, once you applied, so here's an example of how that apple pie recipe site would have looked if you had applied schema. We had looked early on, where you would have had a weak listing if you haven't provided the schema. But with schema now you can see that if you have provided a picture, it now shows you that. It provides you how many calories that it has, how much time it takes to prepare it. It also shows you how many people have liked or rated your apple pie. And all of these things are important because the user is more inclined to click a result like this versus the result that we had looked at earlier. Next, we'll talk about how to apply schema on your site. So we now understand what schema is, and obviously it's important and we need to apply it as one of important tools to increase SEO or search engine optimization of your site. So we'll now talk about how to implement it. Before you start implementing schema on your site, the first thing you want to ask yourself is if you have a site, what are the most important gateway pages or important I would say content areas on your site that you want to drive the traffic to, right? And so let's say if it's a hospital website, it could be the locations, it could be the frequently asked questions, blogs, or any other thing. So, or a find a doctor listing, things like that. So first identify those, rank them in terms of which one you want to tackle first. So let's say in this case, if it was find a doctor, which is most relevant, then now that we know that, hey, we want to apply schema to our find a doctor application, then you can next go to the schema.org website and then type in like doctor as the type of keyword, or doctor profile or a provider. And then what will happen is it will show you the type of search schema types that you can apply to your site. So you pick the relevant type that makes best, take that definition, and then from there, either give that to your developer who understands how to apply schema on your sites, and they can apply it in the code behind the scenes, or you would use tools like Google Tag Manager if you've applied it to your site, and be able to dynamically apply it to your existing site. So without any changes, your user interface does not need to change. Like we have talked about, Schema is more of a backend code. You can safely apply it to your existing site, and it will not cause any changes on how your website appears. So it can be applied to existing, or you don't have to worry about redesigning or things like that. Next, once you applied it, you have tools such as the Google Rich Results test. You can easily Google that, and it will come up with a URL box where you can type the URL in. So for example, let's say you've applied the schema for Find a Doctor, and you apply that. You can then type in the URL of your test site or the development site, and it will tell you if there are any errors or any issues that it sees. Or if everything is good, it will give you a thumbs up saying like, hey, everything looks good and it's ready to be parsed if you were to deploy that to your live site. Lastly, let's say if you've done this exercise and you've done that for all of the relevant portions of your site that you wanted to apply to the schema, the next thing that we would do is that, have a schedule. So let's say every quarter or every month, whatever is best for you, look at that schedule to say like, you're going to revisit your site and improvise more schemas, because schema.org actually is a more evolving site where it's constantly creating new schemas that are more specific to particular content that you might have. So you want to revisit the site and and look for schemas and apply schemas or revise the schema that you may have applied. Search engine optimization also applies to your voice searches. For example, you might be searching, when you use the Google search assistant or any assistants, you could actually search for answers on the search engine, and this will actually show up that information. So here you can see that Schema also has a definition to allow of an attribute called speakable that actually allows you to add what you would like the search assistant to say when a search is performed on the Google or on the Google Assistant. Okay, so we just talked about how to apply schema and then revisit it. And let's talk about how do you optimize your content. So let's say you had applied the schema to existing content, and this now gets into, let's say a few months or a few weeks have passed by, and you have now started seeing some of your search, some of your content or pages showing up on the Google search engine. We'll talk about how do you optimize now from there. So a couple of things that you'll notice is that more recently with the new updates from Google, the results that are showing up are more answers to the questions that the user might be searching. So it's starting to realize the context of what user is actually searching for, and then start showing the content. So one of the things that we recommend is that when you apply the schema or write content on your site, make the flow of that content be more natural, as if you're actually answering questions. So it could be frequently asked questions section on your site, or somehow whatever content you're writing, you want it to be more friendly and the way it's written to be more as if it's a spoken response to a question. And that's because it will help the answer-driven content on the voice assistants. So if you have noticed, and I'm sure like many people have started using searches, voice assistants like Siri or Google or Alexa, and you notice that when you make a search on one of those or speak or make a query to those assistants, the answer that comes back, it has only one thing, like, it doesn't tell you like, hey, there is 10 listings. Well, there is also a chance that could happen, but there's something called as a rank 0 answer that shows up. So basically, if the question matches exactly what it already knows of, it will tell you the answer right away. It's not going to tell you that, hey, I have five results that I found. Would you like me to read the first one? It will say that if it doesn't find any proper answers for the question that you're asking. But in most cases, you have seen, and you would see it's improvising that more and more. That once you ask the question, it actually has the answer and reads it out to you. So if you create more answer-driven content on your site, chances are that your site would be one of them, that would be used to answer the question, and that again increases the relevance or your site visits, because if let's say it was talking about services that a hospital offered, that the user was asking for. Now the next question could be, okay, could you schedule an appointment for me with this doctor, that you have helped me find, things like that. The next is focus on local SEO. If someone searches in, let's say, Philadelphia, and then we are here in Michigan, perform the same search, our results are going to be different. And for most businesses, with their websites, what they're trying to target is the community that they are in, right? Because those are the people who are going to convert more versus someone else. So, and this is very much relevant to hospitals as well, where they're serving the community and competing with several other hospital systems within the same community. So they want to stand out and be able to attract the local community. So you want to focus on the local SEO. So make sure that you add the proper, use the schema and let it know which area this particular article talks about, and make it more local. And then finally, there is a schema property called Speakable, which you can add to your schema. And what that is like that allows you to exactly put in the content that you would like the assistant to read. So what I mean by that, if a search is performed on a search assistant, and Google thinks, in this case, if it was Google Assistant, and if it finds your website is the most relevant content, it's actually going to look at that speakable property of the schema and read out whatever you have typed in there to the user. So now it gives you more control on what exactly you want the assistant to say when the user is performing that search, versus what Google may have picked from your content. So that's a few ways on how you can optimize schema on your site once you've applied it.
Yeah, those are such exciting things to me. I mean, the being able to target things. I mean, you want to target things to those users and optimize things to your users, and people probably don't realize, what things you could do with schema here to be able to to accomplish that task. Exactly,
Dave. Yeah.
Well, let's talk real quickly. Obviously, we got some, on this subject, some questions out there. If you could help us out, give us a little bit more information here. So our first question that we've got is basically regarding schema markup. So the question: do I have to mark up every property?
That's a very good question. I think when we implement schema for our clients, this one comes up as one of the things that causes a lot of stress. Like, hey, wait a minute, I look the schema on Find a Doctor or a doctor profile, and I see a lot of these properties that I don't have the information on. For example, hey, what are the journals that this particular provider has produced, or things like that. And you may not have that information for all of your doctors. So what do we do? Like, do we leave it blank, or not apply the markup? And the simple answer is, don't worry about those. You don't have to answer or provide information on every property of the schema. So if, for example, you have a Dr. John Smith that you only have certain information about that, and you only apply the schema for those properties. You don't have to actually utilize all of them. It's not an all or nothing choice. What's more important is that Google understands, or the search engines, understand what exactly the content is, or the context of the content is that it's trying to spider. So in this case, it would be a Find a Doctor profile, and in that schema would be enough for it to know that, hey, you're talking about a doctor's profile, and it will only look for the information that you're provided for, and it will index it. So so you don't have to worry about marking up every property, Dave.
Great, thanks, Sujal. And our next question, my website contains content that is of a type that is unsupported. What do we do in that situation?
Right, and like I mentioned, schema.org is pretty new in terms of the existence of the internet and its application. So schema.org is constantly being evolved. It actually has a lot of these schemas that are coming up that they're producing. It's actually has about 800 schemas that I had last checked at the major level, but there are several being produced as things are getting more relevant. And in this case, I would say, like, let's say Find a Doctor profile. what is provided as a schema today is going to be totally different than what might come up in future, just because they are making it more and more specific. So let's say if there was a food recipe schema, now they have a food recipe schema that is just for disease treatment versus a recipe for just around holidays, or for a recipe for, let's say, how do you do breakfast. So there's different schemas that are coming up regularly. So if you don't worry, just use the schema that's available today, because in the hierarchy of schemas, Google or other search engines will still understand the context. So you don't have to use, don't have to worry about like, hey, I don't have a schema just for this. At the very least, you can add an article schema, which actually will still tell Google on the entire page, like you may have navigation, logos, and different parts of your website, but the article schema, when you apply, at least it will tell the Google search engine where your main content of the page is on. So you can apply a less specific markup page. And when you revisit it again, you can apply the specific schema when it's available.
Okay, and then our last question here, can I add multiple schema.org types per page?
That's another good question. You can, and it's possible. For example, the home page, you may have a section that talks about your news articles. Could be a section that talks about events. That could be an article that talks about, like highlighting certain new, let's say, services that the hospital is providing. So you can apply multiple schemas on the site. The only thing that you want to be careful about is that when Google does spider your site and it has looked up these schemas and it shows up those particular content, those content in the Google search engine pages as featured snippet, obviously it puts a link to it. So when they click on it and they go to this long page where, let's say if it was a location schema and it was talking about a location content that was way at the bottom on that page, user clicks on that link, goes to the site, but they find that, hey, that page is actually talking about something else, not realizing that the location information that they are looked for is actually at the bottom of the page. So I think general practice would be to not use more schemas on every page, but wherever it's relevant, by all means, you should use it.
Okay. And then next up, some examples of all this, some actual clients you're familiar with. If you can give us some information there.
Sounds good, Dave. Yes, I actually brought up some examples just to look at. This is for one of our clients, Beaumont Health System here in Michigan, and you can see we applied schema on their site in January, or I would say late 2019. And with all the COVID, things happening this year, it still increased its organic traffic, and you can see that from 59 to 79%. And these are not just, like urgent care locations or things like that. These are like all different types of content that they have on their website. And you can see that the rankings have gone up. The number of times that they're showing up on page 1 has almost doubled. And the position 1 listing, which is the most important for voice searches, and that's the one that you want to pay attention to, has increased from 494 to 1001. So almost like, double, and the feature snippets, which is your answers, from 23 to 315. So, definitely works, and I think applied rightly puts in a lot of influence on your site. The next slide, I want to show how their locations pages are showing up on Google now. For example, if you search for this particular hospital, you will see that it actually provides you much more information. It gives you a link for the website. It gives you what services are offered, what their hours of operation is, where you can call, things like that. So, that's how it has helped their locations page. And the other case study is of a general page. This is simply a topic or a blog article that they had on their site, but it did answer a question. And you will see that when the user typed in, does Benadryl help with bug bites, their article actually showed up. It actually, got the picture from their article as well, showed it up on the Google. So, once you apply schema, you will start seeing that your site is now getting more real estate on the search engines, and which is very premium, which comes at very premium. So it's great that, you produce a lot of great content, but once you apply schema, it now helps Google understand it and start giving it the right relevance and rankings that you deserve for producing great content. So I think I had those three. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, like you mentioned earlier, I mean, it's just, Google can only see so much, right? So you need to give that information out there, make things relevant, and the more you put in there, the more it's going to see.
Yeah, and the other reason that I produced that particular article was that was created, I believe, in 2018. So it wasn't new content, and it was available. But once we applied the schema, you can see the traffic has actually gone up 151% almost on that site. So again, something that helps. I think it's emerging to be one of the best tools to help with your search engine optimization strategies. Like I said, we are planning to have one more webinar later, coming soon, where we'll actually get into a deeper dive on how you can use Google Tag Manager to apply schema on your existing site. So this is for folks who may not have access to their developers to be able to do this behind the scenes directly in the code. You don't have to be a developer to do this. So we'll show you how to do this using Google Tag Manager in the next webinar.
All right, well, thank you, Sujal, for reviewing this exciting topic of schema with everyone. Obviously, some great information. Be sure to look for more episodes of the ThinkTenq Webinar Series coming from Sujal and the full team at Incubator. Webinars will be available on the Incubator website and posted to our YouTube channel and other social media channels. And we'll have some exciting live events coming up as well. And we'll make sure we'll get the word out to you on social media. Sujal, thanks again.
Thank you, Dave. It was a pleasure, and I wish everyone a happy new year, 2021.